Welcome.
Hello. Welcome. We are finally outside on a Tactical Tuesday.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. Yeah, we have not had the greatest spring. So, welcome, guys. We are happy to be here. It's been a little while since we've been even on. We had 2 weeks off, which was actually so nice to not be scrambling on Tuesdays and running around and brains
Trying to figure out what we're going to talk about.
Well, we know what we're going to talk about, but we don't know how to get it out often. But yeah, it was really nice. Okay?
First question: pineapple on pizza, good or bad?
Is this Ryan?
This
is
must
Ryan.
be a Facebook user. It just says Facebook user, guys.
It's so Ryan Ackroyd. There we go.
It must be, yeah.
Pineapple on pizza, 100%.
Let us know who you are, Facebook user.
It's Ryan.
Okay.
Or it could be Sean.
Pineapple on pizza. Good first question. Tonight, guys, we are doing Ask Us Anything. Most of the questions, I'm hoping, are real estate related. But if they're not, then hey, you can ask us anything you want. We'll hopefully answer it for you correctly.
Awesome.
Good call, Tiffany. So it is Ryan.
There we go.
So absolutely pineapple on pizza. I know some people don't like that, but you know, I love pineapple on pizza. In fact, my favorite pizza, we kind of had a standing arrangement with another couple. We would go on Wednesday nights and we would go to Boston Pizza and order pizza. It was ham. What I would get is ham and pineapple with fresh sliced tomatoes.
An onion.
An onion. Yes, onion. Oh my goodness, that's so good. You're making me hungry.
Nope. All right.
Welcome, everybody. Say hi
Ryan,
and let us know where you're from.
Pineapple,
if we
yes
don't know who
Ryan?
you are, that would be awesome. And there we go. Our first question is out of the way. Thanks, Ryan.
Andrea. It's Andrea. Okay.
No, it was Ryan. Ryan on my phone.
Ryan.
Ha-ha.
Oh, on my phone.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Andrea is also here.
Awesome.
Yeah, for some reason, everything is coming up to us as Facebook users. So
Sean and Andrea have an awesome stuff going on in Moncton. If you guys are looking for places to put your money, man, yeah, great stuff. Adrian and Dan also, first place secured mortgages in Moncton. Great stuff, guys. So keep it coming, keep it rolling. Samir, I got to actually get in touch with you. So very exciting there. All right. Shane, awesome, guys. Pineapple does not belong. It's funny how that is such a... Look at what you started, Ryan.
Some people like it.
How about onion, though? Onion, fresh onion.
I don't know.
Blech. Anyways, okay, we've got a few questions, guys. So short and sweet, all summer long, you might have noticed the last 2 we've done recordings. So all summer long, you know, we're busy, you're busy, so definitely gone a little bit.
Kids are out, people are vacationing.
Yeah, last year we kind of did everything a whole lot simpler, faster. We did just little mini Technical Tuesdays. This year we've tried doing recordings of some of our most popular Technical Tuesdays that we haven't recorded. So that's
happy anniversary, Ray and Joe. Have a great dinner, guys. Yeah.
I miss you too, guys. Yeah, missing you lots. But anyways, I'm glad lots of good stuff is going on. So, hey, Tori. Okay, so we've got our first question. We are stealing these from Fearless. So if and when you have questions and it's applicable to other people, then we will actually throw these on. So really good question, Lee Visser. We will tag you in this training so that you know that your question was done. But here's the question. We're making an offer on a property with a tenant. What are some things that I should consider when inheriting a tenant? That's a big question. Really tough to answer, without yabbing on and on and on for sure. But you did ask, like, can I increase rent? So I'm going to leave that to those comments that were placed because that is so province dependent. But when inheriting a tenant, what can I do? Can I make the tenant requalify? So really good question. So instrumental to whether or not you're going to love this property or not. the tenant placement is so important.
Absolutely. Can I chime in on that?
Yeah, go.
So
Mhm.
just in our experience of we've purchased a number of properties that had tenants in them already. We had some great experiences. We had some not so great experiences. And then for the many years that I was a realtor, not anymore. For the many years I was, a lot of our clients ended up buying properties with an inheriting tenant. So a few things. Number one, when you're looking at potentially buying a property that already has tenants in it, you want to look at that property. And I know this might sound a little funny, but the tenants are coming along with it, just like the fridge and stove are coming along with it. Just like maybe you're buying it with, I don't know, appliances, or you're buying it with some other chattels of some sort.
Chattel. You're calling tenants a chattel?
Well, it kind of is the same. You're buying that property with a tenant. They're coming along with it. So part of your diligence process before you remove conditions and go firm on that property is examining, just like you would examine the appliances. Are they in good condition? Is the furnace in good condition? Are these things in good condition? You want to make sure that your tenant is as well. Is this a tenant that I want to deal with? Because when you're inheriting the tenant, and especially in other provinces here, other than Alberta,
Right?
across the country, you may have that tenant for many years to come.
Yeah.
It may be difficult to get out of that situation if you're in a bad situation. So you really need to do your diligence when putting in an offer. Make sure that on the purchase contract, you have the ability to review the application they originally filled out, or have them fill out another application for you to review,
Okay.
because you have to qualify it. And here's the deal.
You can. You don't have to, but you can and should, for sure.
Yeah. And if it's a tenant you don't want, you may, depending on the province you're in, may not have an ability to get rid of that tenant. So that's where you
So
then make a
important.
decision: do I want to buy this property or not? Because that is something that comes along with it.
Oh, look at this. So really applicable, really obviously 10,
Oh wow,
right? So
Tori,
Tori
yeah.
out in BC bought a property with a tenant. She didn't pay for months. Today's celebration as the sheriff finally got her out. So there you go. Like real life example of how it can, be great. It can be awesome if you have the right tenant. It's like, man, I just walk right in and it's turnkey. Or, getting a sheriff involved and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, awesome. Sorry.
Yeah, and sometimes, guys, not to scare you away from buying properties with tenants, because sometimes you buy a property that has a tenant in it already. Well, from day one, you're going to start cash flowing. If the property, assuming the property cash flows, like day one, you have rent coming in, you have that can cover your expenses. So there's a lot of pluses to inheriting tenants,
For
but
sure.
there can be negatives, and it depends on the tenant, and that's why you need to do your diligence on that part.
Okay, so correction. Awesome. Good call on that, Brandon. So this was in New Brunswick. So Tori's buying properties across the country, like a lot of us are. And so in New Brunswick. So totally different kind of can of worms there. But looks like you got it dealt with. Yay. So good. That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah,
So
Sean and Andrea, great tenants inherited on the last purchase.
yeah,
They're making
making
improvements on their own.
own.
Well, those are the kind of tenants you want to inherit, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So here's the question. Lee, this is your question. Can I requalify them? Yes and no, depending on the type of lease and depending on your province. So, if your lease is a fixed term, generally speaking, across the provinces, you have to honor that fixed term. So, when it comes to, like if it's till December 30th, well, you've got a tenant till December 30th. Other places, if it's 3 months, a month, then maybe you have 3 months before you can get them out. And in some places, you can't get them out at all. So it is dependent. However, should you, as part of your qualifying, because before you buy it, certainly you can qualify these people. So there's a couple things you can do. One, you can have a declaration, a tenant declaration form signed by them. So you, like Corey mentioned, you can put, that part of your offer to purchase. I want to know who's in there. I want to see the leases. Sometimes there's no lease, which in most provinces that will default into a month-to-month, which is a lot harder to kind of deal with. So that may
or if it's a family member that's renting, from the current owner, or things like that. And oh yeah, well, they pay me every single month, but we don't have anything on paper.
Right. Yeah.
There's so many different scenarios that can come up that you, as an investor, as somebody that's purchasing a property, need to review and know this information before you make the decision to go all in and buy that property. So this is important information to get.
Yeah. So like Corey said, the first thing you can make that as part of your offer to purchase. Okay. Second thing is you can actually go to that tenant or have a property manager do it, or have the owner, the current owner, before you take possession, you know, take a tenant declaration. So basically that says, hi, my name is, I'm the renting at this property, I pay this much. Because, it'd be nice if you could go knock on the door, but a lot of us are investing from afar, so we can't always do that. But really what we want to know is what the owner is saying. Let's say there's no lease in place. Okay, so if there's a lease, yeah, okay, we believe what the lease says. Generally speaking, people aren't going to give you a fraudulent lease, generally speaking. But if there's no lease in place, we might want to say, okay, well, the owner says that you're paying, whatever, 1,300. And then here you find out, oh no, this person is actually paying 825. So what it is it's a tenant declaration. At that time, you then can say to them, hey, listen, do you plan to stay? Do you plan to go? Like, what's your plans? We want to make sure you're happy. We do not intend to disrupt your life. We really want to make sure everyone's happy. What's your plans? And here's what we need to know from you. And so you make it, a reason for getting together and a reason for talking. So you can use a property manager, or you can do that yourself. So first is offer to purchase, you can say it. Number two is a tenant declaration of all the information that you're hoping to get from them. Number three is knowing your rights within your legislation. So if you are in a province that is going to say, like, look, you inherited these tenants that paying $825, market rent is $13.25. You may only be able to raise that rent, a percentage or whatever. You have to know that province's legislation so that you know, are you even going to be able to raise the rent when you put a new tenant in? And what kind of legislation is coming down the line for that province? Because you know that a lot of that stuff is changing right now, right? So those are some of the things that you want to consider. So Lee, we will tag you so that you make sure to see that you are being, your question is being answered. I will also put this feed right within your question in Fearless Investor so you can see it. So
awesome.
yeah.
So question number
guys.
2. So we had a pizza question, then we had, so just a reminder, guys, throw your questions in the chat. If
yeah, any questions?
you've been wondering about something, whatever it is, throw it in the chat. We will do our best to answer it. And so let's see a few questions come in. And what I'd like to see too, guys, here's a question for you. If you have bought a property and inherited a tenant, throw it in the chat. Was it good or was it bad? Okay.
How about like a scale?
Or a scale,
like
1 to 10. Okay.
Yeah.
So 1 being bad, it was a bad experience. 10 being it was a good experience. Throw a number in the chat. If you have bought a property and inherited a tenant, how did that go for you? 10 is great.
Let me give you an example.
Okay.
We just sold a property of my dad's to a Fearless member who is on tonight. So the tenant that's in that place, we were really, 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 really careful to get someone that, would be really okay with change of ownership and isn't going to be like a fighter and all that kind of stuff. So this tenant that we have in, first of all, not only is she so appreciative and so just loves the property itself, but she's very much, she talked about how she left her last property, the owner was, kind of being a little bit unfair, and she just kind of said, well, it's okay, and I said, well, you know that you can actually fight that, like in a court of law, you would actually win if you wanted to. And she's like, well, you know what, I'm okay, I'm glad to be out of there. So she just, all of her demeanor was just so great. You'd say like, oh, can we have someone go in and take another peek at that fridge, because we might be replacing a fridge, just FYI. But like, can we have someone go in? Oh yeah, no worries. Like, is she easy to deal with? Is she a problem to deal with? Is when we asked her to fill out the application, did it come 2 days later or did it come within an hour? When she said she would send the deposit, did it come on time? Has she paid for rent on time since? It's been a couple of months. Absolutely. All of these things are so important. So when you're vetting a property, you're also vetting the tenant for sure. Sound is slightly larger. I don't know that. Okay. How's that going? Okay, so guys, we have another question here. Let's see how we do with the sound. Good news. So Melanie Bennett, you've got your question up. We will also tell you. Just so you know, we're talking about accountants and real estate specific. So when it Did we actually book him for the next stage? We're supposed to have an accountant on last week.
Not specific.
I know, we were like, there's not enough audience in the summer. We're moving into September. So George Judy from BDO, they're out of where?
Kitchener
Kitchener,
area.
yeah.
Kitchener-Waterloo area.
We use them. They have for years. They've saved us more money than you can even imagine. And we have zero need to see them. Everything in this day and age is done electronically. So your question here is, do you have a real estate and investor focused accountant in the York region? So not far off for sure, but for everyone watching, you don't need a location specific investment accountant. Okay, you can do everything online these days. And what's more important than location is their qualifications. Whether are they investors themselves? Do they understand investment rules? Do they understand what the CRA is looking for? The kind of rule of essence that's happening. That's the kind of stuff that's important.
So in the real estate industry, when we are working as investors, there are a lot of things that we do need that are location specific. We need a location specific realtor. We need a location specific lawyer, province specific lawyer. We will need an inspection company. But there's a lot of things that we don't need that are not location specific. We don't need to have our accountant right where we live or where the property is. Like Tiff said, we live in Alberta. Most of our properties are in Alberta, and our accountant is in Ontario. Everything can be done online nowadays. Same with the bookkeeper. Our bookkeeper happens to be in Edmonton, but we haven't seen them in person for a few years now.
No. Oh, our bookkeeper. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Yeah,
oh,
and again, everything is done done online. So there's a lot of same with your insurance company. It doesn't have to be location specific. So there's certain things that are, certain things that aren't, and don't get stuck with picking an accountant that you live close to versus an accountant that is real estate specific and investor specific. So that's more important than where they are located.
And certainly we can help you with that, but also, you know what, finding a good investor-focused realtor, we've talked about this in boot camp before, so someone like Corey, who's a realtor, he's an investor himself, he knows, he has these people, this is part of his team, you can always find a good investor-focused realtor that can also refer. Your realtor is like your quarterback, right? They're the ones who are kind of talking to your whole entire team. They can refer people to you, but for sure, yeah, you do want that investor-focused person. And myself, I always like someone who's invested themselves because, like right now, for example, I've gone through, well, in the last 3 years, I think we've had 3 or 4 different handymen, just because our handymen have retired and left the business or become renovators rather than handymen. Things are constantly changing. So like our painter has been the same painter for many, many years, but some things change. And so you want someone who has a portfolio. Like I had to look for a new handyman, which Tyson Swain actually gave me a great referral right here in Fearless to his handyman. So, but I had to look for and try out a new handyman for my own properties recently. And therefore, I now, am able to share that with you guys. So it's really important to be dealing with people that are investors themselves, as well as professionals.
A reminder, guys, if you have any questions, throw it in the chat. It sounds like there's a little bit of audio issues, but there's nothing we can do about that right now that I can think of.
I turned off the music that was going on inside our house.
Yeah.
You bring it forward.
I'm not sure that we can do anything. Yeah. So
he played with all the settings while I was yabbering on there. So.
And let me just make a little switch here, guys. Give me 1 second. Try that and see if that does anything. Maybe you guys can just throw in the chat.
Yes, no.
You can still hear us or not, and how it sounds, if it's any better or not. That would be great.
That would be great.
Awesome. And Danielle, yes, we're not off for the summer. We're still doing our regular ignited laser sessions, and better. Look at that. Of course we are. Oh wow. Okay, good to know, guys.
So did we just like totally yabber on talking about stuff that you couldn't even understand anyways?
Look at all the chat coming in. That's all we got to do is, there we go.
Craig, I messaged Lisa back. I just got her message tonight. Please let her know that. Please have a look at her phone. So, sounds better. Awesome. Yay. Hey, Melissa.
Perfect.
Out in Sydney. Speaking of Sydney, Irshad, Melissa is a Sydney girl and buying up Sydney, so that's great. Okay. Oh, you did hear. Okay, perfect, Sean. Thanks. And you know what? Another investor-focused person that you want to have on your team is that investor-focused mortgage broker, Sean Sullivan, guys. If
And
you don't
that
know
is somebody
Sean,
that
you
does
should be
not need to
contacting
be
him.
location specific. You don't need a mortgage broker, you know, that you can go and sit down with in their office. Everything as far as a mortgage broker can be done online. So there's certain things you
Thanks,
need
Cheryl.
location specific, and there's certain things you don't.
Brandon. Okay, so hey guys, if you have questions, put it in.
Questions. That's what I was trying to say.
Come on.
Questions, guys.
Put your questions in.
Let's see some questions. I want to.
Go
Okay. You want to know where? I don't know what kind of questions.
Well, anything
maybe
like
I should just come up
landlording,
with a question for you.
market questions, joint venture questions, private lending questions, mortgage questions. You know, we may not have all the answers, but we usually can refer you to someone who does. So, yeah, if you have questions, guys, pick our brains.
So Urshad says, share your thoughts on interest rate increases. Markets are down compared to last year. No one knows the bottom of the market. Should we wait to buy for a while?
Irshad, good question.
Good question, Irshad. And that's, you know, of course, very market specific, depending on where you're buying in the country. Yes, interest rates are going up. Not all markets are down. Some are down, some are up. And if you look back 4 years ago, 3 years ago, some markets were down, some markets were up. Will the interest rate increases affect certain markets more than others? It's obviously going to affect markets that have higher average prices, because that's going to increase at a higher percentage rate. So yes, there are certain markets that are going to be hit a little bit harder than others. And so we need to be very specific. My thoughts on this are: be very specific in the markets you're buying in now. It doesn't mean you have to stop buying, because there's going to be a lot of opportunity come available. If there are markets that are going down in value, if there are properties that are going down in value, that opens up opportunities that you may not have had last year. Keep your eye on what is happening to rents in those particular markets. Are they going down as well? Can you still cash flow if the rents go down 10, 15, 20%? How is that going to affect your cash flow? So regardless of what interest rates are doing, regardless of what markets are doing, we need to be conservative in the numbers when we're trying to make a decision on a property that we're going to be buying. But here's the number one key that I would suggest for anybody that is looking to buy in 2022, 2023, is certainly be very conscious and do your diligence on the market that you're going to be buying in. And if interest rates go up, if rents go down, how are you going to do cash flow wise? Very, very important.
So cash flow is really what's going to protect us from the ups and downs of every market. So whether we're making a lot of money in equity or not, when we don't have cash flow in our pockets and we, you know, can't pay for extra stuff, extra bills that we have ourselves, that's when our emotion gets involved, and that's when we end up, you know, having a hard time. So, you know, Irshad, yeah, we can attest to the fact, because we've been through it in Alberta a number of times with our own portfolio. We can attest to the fact that, you know what, you may or may not, you know, have highs and lows and all that stuff. But what's going to keep you level is whether you have cash flow. So you've been buying in high cash flow markets. I would say that you're, you know, a whole lot more hedged against those kinds of things happening. But here's some other things you want to look at. In migration, Sean Skelly put in a post in Fearless, a video talking about in migration in the same areas that you're looking at. And in migration and immigration, so the differences between provinces versus between countries, those two things have a massive effect on the market. So, you know, yes, are we seeing that people are going to have to start, you know, not buying that higher end stuff because of interest rates? Yeah. But you know what? It's about time. Interest rates have been so crazy cheap for so long. It's about time.
Yeah.
So this correction is actually a good thing. Now, are people moving to the area or are they not? Here's another thing that used to be a really good measure. Now, because things are so kind of blown out of proportion, it's not so much. But in your area that you're buying in Irshad, it probably still applies. What is the income of the people in the area. So once the income starts outpacing, once the house prices start outpacing the income, then we have a problem. The bigger the gap, the more there's a problem. But if the incomes are rising, as well as, which is happening in your area, as well as the house prices, and they're rising together, we don't have so much of an issue. So look at the income prices versus the property, income, not the income prices. Look at the incomes versus the property prices, and see if they're matching or if they're kind of going like this. Where can you find that information? It's the Housing Affordability Index, RBC, TD. A lot of them, the big banks, have a monthly, if not quarterly, report that comes out that kind of talks about that.
So the questions are rolling in. So thank you guys. Some good questions. So let's move to this one here. I just can't see it now.
Sorry.
Okay. So this is Roman that asked this question. I'm starting out in multifamily, wondering if you know a good listing company similar to ListSource in the States.
Oh, okay.
So I am not aware of one here in Canada that is similar to that.
And the reason is because our privacy laws are a whole lot
as far as multifamily is concerned, is it really comes to your relationship with realtors that deal with multifamily. So the market, again, that you are investing in, you want to establish a relationship with the realtors that deal with the multifamily buildings there. Now, that doesn't mean the realtors that have MLS listings necessarily. Okay, so here's the key difference between multifamily and single family for the most part, although this does apply to single family too, is realtors that work with investors buying and selling multifamily. Vast majority of those properties never hit the open market, especially the really good properties. They have them as pocket listings. They know the owner's name and address. They can pull up to a building and say, oh, so-and-so owns this property. They've owned it for X number of years. They're thinking, last time I talked to them, they were thinking of holding for another 5 years. That was 3 years ago. You know what? Maybe we should give them a call and see what they're thinking. That's the type of conversations you're going to have with a connected multifamily realtor in whatever market you're looking at. And so that's where you want to start establishing those relationships. Telling them the type of property you're looking for, what you're qualified for as far as financing is concerned. And of course, if it's different from multifamily, the building does a lot of that qualification for you. But still, they're going to want to know what you have available as down payment, for example, what price ranges of buildings you're going to look for. So, and then you establish that relationship with them, and they start connecting you with owners and helping you out in that area.
And it really is one of those industries that's really pocket based. So, Roman, if you also want to do kind of the legwork yourself and find those kind of one-off, let's say you're driving by an area, or you do even a Google Earth search and you see kind of a rundown property but in a nice area that you're like, I wonder, you can always do a title search. So, you can pull title. You can do that at a local registry for the most part. And in most provinces, you just pull title and it tells you the owner. It might tell you the corporation owner. Now you have to do a corporate registry search to find out the personal owner. Then now, how do you find the person? It doesn't give you their contact info. Like now you have to search online to see how can I get their Facebook, write a letter. Yeah.
Go back to 1985.
Right. Like pretend that we're not in this information age, because with property in Canada, there is a lot of privacy surrounding it, which is really nice. It's not open like it is in the States. But yeah, so you can go and do private searches yourself in some provinces. Spin2 is a website in Alberta you can use. But if not, you can usually get it done at a registry, and it's like, how much is it
to do a
under $50
title search?
Yeah, under $50.
Yeah.
So you can do that as well if you would like to do kind of more the hands-on stuff. So that is available in lots of places.
Okay.
Cheryl, how about the changes coming in BC? Are you talking about the changes to the property ownership registry? So I'm going to just leave that with you. You let me know if that's what you're talking about. And Danielle, does the next of kin have to pay for damages? A tenant passed away in one of my units. Okay, so no, next of kin, to my knowledge, does not. A person's debts are a person's debts. When they pass, the debt and or asset passes into their estate. So you can make a claim on their estate. usually, you know, banks, credit card companies, all that kind of stuff will get first place in those cases. But if they've got a lot of assets, you know, maybe there will be something there for you. It can be really long process to get paid out. It's not a hard process to put an application in. So you might as well put your application in, and if in a couple of years when they settle the estate out, you get a check, great. But in the meantime, you know, generally speaking, I mean, and tell me, Danielle, too, do you mean damages like, oh, there we go. Yeah, so Tori's answering the exact same thing. So, but do you mean damages like from their death? Because I know this is a gross, morbid topic, but if someone has died in your unit and there needs to be certain reclamation done of the property for whatever reason, your insurance will often pay for that. So, you know, you can look into that. So if their death caused damage within your property, that is also different versus damage like, you know, the property is there and left completely in a pigsty, and now it's costing you to get rid of it and all that kind of stuff. You can sue against their estate for that. So, and you know, letting their next of kin know that that's probably what you're going to do. It often, people often do want to make sure that out of dignity and respect for their loved one, that things are left okay for their name, their reputation, their legacy, I guess. So that might also be an avenue. So, but yeah.
Okay.
That
Next
would be my guess.
question is Julian. What's the
Julian.
longest period of time you had a property without a tenant? That's a you question.
Julian, that is a me question. So I do our property management stuff. Julian, I'm going to pretend like I am not going to answer it for this last property that we had, because I chose to leave that one empty for longer than I needed to, because I just personally in my life. Okay. So I'm going to ignore this last property that we had, which was vacant for like 4.5 months, but I'm going to talk about what would, you know, what have we seen? So in 18 years of investing in Alberta, where we've seen 4 recessions, 2 of which were pretty brutal recessions. I don't know an exact number, but I would say what, 2.5 months?
Yeah,
maybe
3 months. It's I mean, it happens. That's
for sure. Yeah, it happens.
It's
as I've gotten better at property management, certainly it happens less. We don't have vacancies anymore if we don't choose to have them. But yeah, I would say 2.5 to 3 months, and that's at the worst of times. With, you know, sometimes some not great
in the middle of
properties.
winter too. And so, you know, that's why at the beginning, especially, we didn't really understand that weather played a part in tenant you know, vacating and putting tenants in a property. Is, you know, they don't want to move in the middle of winter, and they don't want to be moving in the middle of winter, and the type of applications that you get are going to be different in the winter. At least here in the Edmonton area, that's been our experience. So we've made a lot of adjustments to how we do things, and when we have leases end in the spring or summer months at the very latest, so that we're not running into the winter vacant, because then that's when you can really sit for a couple 3 months and before you're going to fill that vacancy. So there's things that you can do to help fix that situation.
And you know what else I've learned is sometimes okay, so here, Julian, here's the thing that Corey taught me that I was really resistant to. I had in my head that I wanted a certain amount of rent. So on my cash flow sheet to my investors, let's say that I said they're going to get $1,600. Well, I want to bring my investors $1,600 a month. That's what I want to do, because that's what I said I'm going to do. And then I get a lease break in February. And technically, yes, I can chase every tenant that breaks their lease, but in reality, doesn't always work, right? So here I am in February, I've got a lease break. I have to release this place. Well, I want my 1,600, right? But guess what? If I go 1 month vacant, so you do the numbers on that, okay? Because you're better with that. But
well,
you know where I'm
1
going.
month vacant, you're losing $1,600 for a year, which is what, $120
$20
a month. So now, if you rented for $1,480 for the 12 months, you're equal to getting $1,600 and 1 month vacancy.
$1,480. Okay, so
roughly,
yeah, ish. Okay, so my pride, my stubbornness, and my, I don't know, what do you want to call it? Like, just like headstrongness. I was like, no, I want 1,600.
I've got a few names for that.
Okay,
but
okay, zip it. But like 1,600 a month, that's what I had in my head. But guess what? that doesn't make sense. So look at your numbers, Julian, on an annual basis. So like if I rented this place, let's say that, if I go vacant for that month, fine. What if I only go vacant for 2 months or 2 weeks because I bring the price down by $50? Am I still break even? I'm still break even. I'm still winning in the same place.
Mhm.
It's just in my head that I'm not.
Mhm.
So there's, stuff like that, offering incentives. If I know I'm going to be vacant for a month, offer a free month rent. But then also, like, let's say they have pets. Oh, sorry, that doesn't apply if you have pets, because you're going to, we're going to have more damages from you. Or that only applies if you take it for the first of the month. Oh, well, I can't take it till the 15th. Okay, that's fine. So we'll do an incentive, but it's not going to be a full free month. So you can figure out and learn how to do some of these things.
Yeah.
Sean, this walks right into your question. So self-managing properties, have we done it for so long? All right. So
Good question.
I'm crazy. And that's why. That's pretty much, we did go to a property management company for less than a year. But in Edmonton, we were plagued for a long time with bad property managers. We are not anymore. We have some really nice options now, which is great. But for a long time, we were plagued with that. So really, it was a matter of necessity. Secondly, bad property managers, yes. Secondly, we also didn't buy right. And guys, this is why we can stand where we sit today and say, like, okay, go for cash flow,
Mhm.
because we didn't. We were taught there's going to be a big upswing, jump on that wave. And we did, and we got the upswing, but we didn't sell. And in the meantime, it was really hard for us to keep going when we were negligible cash flow. Okay, so cash flow, that's going to help you, keep going. We didn't have the cash flow to be able to pay a property manager. So, necessity is the mother of invention. That's why we lasted so long. But then we got pretty good at it. And we got to a place where everything's automated.
Yeah.
We use systems, we used, programs, software, apps, all that stuff. And things automate pretty well. Now, all of our ads are just on all these websites that are saved in our accounts. When we have a vacancy, we just hit go.
Mhm. What a
Like, we
difference
don't
from
have to
before, where
make
every single time you
time. We
have to
had to
make a new
create
ad
an
and add the
ad.
pictures and all of that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and figure out a description. And our showing system, which, Karina, really great question. I see it coming up, so I'll kind of walk through that a little bit too. Karina is asking, can you do a role play of how you get 50% of the first month's rent at the time of a showing if you get that great gut feeling? I'm finding that people are hesitant. So here's one hint toward that also answers Sean's question. You know what, Sean? We stagger our viewings. We have a YouTube video about that. I never do a showing, and neither do any of my property agents. I never do a showing without there being more than one person. And what that does, Karina and Sean, is it gives you that ability to say, like, okay, so you like it. So tell me what you like about the place. And they'll tell you, okay, what don't you like? What boxes is it not ticking for you? And a lot of times it'll bring people to be like, well, actually nothing. Like, actually, this is what we want. Like, okay, so I put you first. After I talked to you and screened you, I put you as the first showing because I really liked you and I really hoped that you would want to rent this place. But I do have someone coming in 20 minutes. So if you're interested, and so here's the role play. Okay, this is kind of answering both questions. So Karina, here's the role play. So if you are interested and you know that you're going to want to take it, you probably need to put some money down on it. So usually we ask for first month's rent. In this case, I just need half a month's rent. So if you're willing to put down half a month's rent, then you get first place in line, because money talks, right? You got to put your money where your mouth is. If you want it, it's the money that will secure it for you.
So bottom line is, it's a scarcity mentality, right? It's there's others that are interested, and we have other people coming to look at it, and
but that has to be true.
The people who get priority are the ones that put down their money first. It's just kind of like a fact of life. It's not I'm not trying to swindle you. I'm not trying to sell you something. It's just the way that we work it. So
okay, but how do we work it? Let's talk about that for a second. So what we do is, let's say that I have someone really interested. So you get that good gut feel even on the phone, Karina, and you're like, okay, I like these people. I want to get them in. So you schedule a time based around them. Okay. So maybe you didn't have a time before that. You have interest, but you're like, okay, well, I'll just let you know when we're doing our next showing, because they're good, but you don't think you'll rent to them anyways. So you just keep them in the background. Now you get these people, they seem great. You say, Kate, we're going to meet, 3:00 on Monday. Perfect. Now you go back to your other list. Hey, our showing is scheduled for 3:00 on Monday. Did you want to join us? We can put you in for 3:15, 3:30, 3:45, 4:00, right? So now what that does is it does create where you have multiple people coming to your showings. You may or may not be willing to rent to all of them. Maybe you will. And maybe sometimes, you make a bad call on the phone and be like, oh, I should have, catered to these people more. But for the most part, you're going to create, for one, you're going to be efficient with your time. So you're not running around all the time for one-offs, right? That sometimes don't even show. You're going to be efficient with your time. You're going to create like an interest, right? Like there's a buzz in the air. It's like, whoo, everyone wants this place, right? And then automatically you can say to them, like, if you do want the place, you probably need to put some money down. Here's how it works. So here's a bit of a role play in saying what I always say to people is, so here's how our application process works. We only take applications with deposit, which means that you can't just apply. You have to put some money down. That allows us to know that you're serious. So we only take applications with deposit. So we would take a half month's rent from you just because we really like you. If this is true, of course, right? If I don't, I will often say a full month's rent just to kind of deter them a little bit even. So we will take first month's rent or half a month's rent because I do think that you're perfect for this property. I'd love to see you in here. But here's the deal. You have to be sure. Because if you're not, you don't get your money back. So this is how it works. And this is where everyone kind of goes, oh, okay. So I want to be really clear with you. I want to be really transparent because I don't want any hard feelings at all. But here's how it works. If for some reason you change your mind, you will not get your money back. However, if for some reason we can't accept you, which is usually based on credit, I always throw that in there because it is in our application process. If for some reason we cannot accept you, which is usually based on credit, then you will get your money back. So if you change your mind, you won't get your money back. So are you sure you want to apply? And that usually gets people going, okay, interesting. First of all, you've separated the man from the men from the boys. Those that want it will step up. Yeah, I'm interested. I'm willing to do that. And because you've been forthright, they believe you, I think, when you say you will give them their money back if they don't qualify. Having said that, you tell them up front what you're qualifying them with. And for us, that's credit. So they know if they don't have good credit, they don't apply. It's just the way it goes.
Okay.
Okay,
we get
just
this
wait.
question a lot on the 25th.
You just let me know, Karina, if that answered your question, okay? If not, I can amp it up.
25th of the month. Why on the 25th of the month do our leases begin? So a lot of these questions, guys, are property management questions, which is good because she's the property management expert in my world. So
I've been doing it for 18 years. I've had
why the 25th of the month?
So many tenants. Why the 25th? So again, we bought wrong. We didn't always have the cash flow come the first to pay all the mortgages. We didn't have the money in the account. We needed those rental payments to come in before we could pay all those mortgages. So if it came in on the 25th of the month, by the first, when our mortgages came out, we were fine. We didn't have to scramble and transfer stuff all over the place.
Here's the thing is if a tenant does bounce a check, if a check doesn't go through, whatever. Now it's a little different nowadays with a lot of stuff coming out of people's bank accounts, that sort of thing. But let's say you are depositing a check and it does bounce. Well, now you're finding out by the 27th, 28th, 29th of the month, and you can do something about it before your mortgage comes out on the 1st, if that's the way your mortgages are set up.
Whatever.
So it gives you a bit of lead time. And that's kind of the number one reason, Sean, why we decided to do our leases on the 25th of the month.
As a byproduct of that we did not know nor expect, the byproduct of that is a happy life. Okay, so as a property manager, the worst day of my life was the 30th, 31st, 1st. Like I just every month would dread those days because when you've got one tenant, if you're doing things right, if you're advertising well and your showings are going well, you've got one tenant moving out on the same day you have another tenant moving in. You've got a 4 to 6 hour window at best. Now, if the tenants are not, if the place is not in good order, how do you paint, clean, make a place beautiful for someone else to move into if you've got 4 to 6 hours without pre-booking and paying for cleaners and whoever else that you may or may not need, but you have
Big
to pay them
advantage.
because you booked them. So
Now
on
you
the
have 5 to
25th,
6 days to get that
we
stuff
have a
done.
week to get it painted. We have a week to get cleaners in there. I don't have to pre-book them and pay their minimum of 3 hours, even if I walk in and go, oh, you know what, the place is perfect, I don't need you. I don't have to do any of that stuff anymore to make sure that my next tenants come into a beautiful home because I've got a week to do it. So as a byproduct of necessity of going from the 25th to the 25th, that's the other thing, Sean, your question said, ending on the 25th, new one starting on the 1st. It's 25th to the 25th. So what happens is if I need that extra 5 to 6 days, I have it. If I don't, I can move someone in on the 25th. I usually know ahead of time whether or not I'm going to have to use that. So it just gives me that buffer zone. Okay.
Good. Liability insurance. What if a tenant doesn't get it? What's your risk?
Well, so
ultimately the risk lies in for the tenant, because the building is insured. You have insurance on the building. You still have your insurance, which covers if there's a fire, if there's a flood, all of those sorts of things. But if a tenant doesn't have insurance on their goods, then they're the ones that lose out. You are not responsible for the goods inside. And in fact, in our leases, and I would make sure that in your lease or shed, that you would have that it is their responsibility to insure themselves, and you are not responsible for the goods that they bring into that property.
So we actually have them initial that is that we actually also have, just as a tip, that a sewer backup rider is highly recommended because most tenant policies don't have a sewer backup rider. So if a flood is a result of sewer backup, my insurance will not pay for their contents, even though it is technically like our fault or our insurance's fault too. But if they don't have an insurance backup rider, sewer backup rider on their insurance policy, on their tenant policy, their stuff won't be covered if it is by sewer backup. So it's like $12 a year difference for them to get that sewer backup rider. And we always recommend they do that and actually have them initial saying that we've recommended it and that is their choice. So what is your liability, Irshad? You don't have necessary liability. It does rest with them, but I can tell you it sours a relationship for sure. When your property floods, because your sewer backed up and they lost all their stuff and there's nothing to be done because no one's going to cover that. And it's not like you're going to out of pocket that for them either. It sours a relationship. So I make it mandatory only so that I can walk in and the one time that we learned that actually, we ended up, these poor people, they were refugees. They'd been with us for maybe 3 or 4 years. They had their basement full of stuff. It flooded. They didn't have insurance. They didn't have that sewer backup rider. So, we had a crew go in and help them to empty their basement. We put a big storage unit in their yard. What do you call it? A sea can kind of thing, that sort of thing, so that they could get it out because our insurance company was like, we need to go in there and fix it before the mold starts. If the mold starts and we can't get in there, you're hooped. So we're going to throw everything out. Or else we won't cover you if we can't get in there in the next 48 hours. And we were like, okay, we need in there. And they're like, but our stuff. So anyways, into a
storage unit
in their yard that we paid for, helped them get it all out, all that. But then they had to clean it all. And, it was a big thing. They lost a lot of their stuff. And after that, my heart just went out to them, but there was only so much I could do. We did help them out a little bit, but there's only so much you can do. After that, we made it mandatory in all of our leases. So not your liability, theirs, but good human and sleep at night. You probably want to, force your hand a little bit.
So
Cheryl.
I'm just going to address LADA first. LADA,
okay.
Are deposits allowed in Alberta? Maybe you could just clarify what you mean by deposits. I'm assuming you mean damage deposits or security deposit.
In many places, it's first month's rent and
maybe
last
you could
month's
just
rent, right?
clarify that. Yeah. But before we get to that, then, Cheryl, you're talking about a 3-day period for people to do their due diligence. Now, I'm assuming that this is you as a buyer buying something, and I'm kind of assuming that you're talking about maybe buying a pre-construction type property, but I could be wrong on that. I have not heard of a
No,
3-day period
but Tori would know.
to do their due diligence, and then having to owe the seller a percentage of the price if you back out. I'm assuming that would be after the 3-day period. If you're backing out after you're unconditional, maybe that might be the case. But maybe you can clarify what you mean by that, Cheryl, because I think that ties in with the question she asked earlier.
Hang on here. I'm just throwing this up there. Tori's an investor himself. He's also an investor focused realtor in BC. So if you have that question, he would know that answer, right? If that is coming down the line, I don't know that it is, but he would have that answer for you. So maybe reach out to him, and he's super amazing and like always willing to share, and just really nice guy. So yeah, reach out to Tori, because we don't actually know the answer to that one. But again, if we don't know the answer, we generally know someone that we can put you in touch with. So ask your questions, even if you don't think we know it.
Perfect. So Leda did clarify in Ontario, it's first and last month's rent, not a deposit, as it is not allowed. You were saying you asked for an application with deposit. Is that an actual deposit or the last month's rent?
Awesome question. And you're so right. I wasn't clear on that. So it is a deposit toward first month's rent. That is in Alberta. If I took a damage deposit, okay, even half a month's damage deposit, and they backed out, let's say, I had it rented a month ahead or 2 months ahead, come move-in day, they back out. If I had their damage deposit, I would have to give it back to them. But in Alberta, and you have to check your legislation wherever you are, in Alberta, you do not have to give it back to them if it's first month's rent or a deposit toward first month's rent. Okay, so yes, we are allowed to take damage deposit in Alberta, and when we take a half,
we don't take. Yes, we take a damage deposit, but when we're taking the deposit you are referring to
the place,
to hold the property when they're filling out their application, that sort of thing. What Karina was talking about, and that is a deposit of half of a first month's rent. Yes.
Yeah. And Leda, if you do need someone to help you with that in Ontario, if you need some of our amazing Ignited members.
Although she was asking about Alberta, so maybe.
Yeah, she did ask for Alberta. So, but if you're looking for that in Ontario, you're right. First month's rent, last month's rent only. But we have lots of Ignited members that are amazing humans that can, answer some of those questions for you, including Sean Sullivan, who is both mortgage broker and investor in Ontario. So.
Awesome.
All right.
That's the questions that everybody's thrown in so far. And guys, can you believe it? It's almost been an hour that we've been on here.
This was fun. I love all the questions.
Excellent questions, guys. Thank you very much for putting the questions in. I hope that we were able to answer them clear enough so that they made sense. And our plan going forward, guys, is to be doing more of these Ask Us Anything sessions.
Once a month.
We're going to do one once a month. And so the idea is that the questions that get into Fearless, if they need a longer explanation, if they need to be a little clearer than something that is typed out in a post, we can then come on once a month and cover those in a little bit deeper depth. And then also give you guys the opportunity so that, when you are on here live and you do have a question or something that you've been thinking about, and maybe you haven't made a post, you can throw it in there and we can get to it and answer it.
And here's the thing, guys. In Ignited, we do this every single week. So Ignited is our paid coaching mentorship program. We do this every single week. It's on Zoom, but it's face-to-face. They get to ask their questions, not just on Facebook Live or like Cheryl on YouTube Live, but face-to-face. We do it every single week. However, for those of you that are not our Ignited members, we wanted to give you an opportunity to also pick our brains a little bit. And it is a little bit of a speed version of it, doing it here. But yeah. Anyways, guys.
And if you do, guys, have questions about Ignited, you've heard us talk about it. At the end of every single one of our broadcasts, we say, okay, we're going to meet you Ignited members over in our laser session, which we're going to do in about 5 minutes.
Yep.
And you're wondering, what does that all mean? Just go to investorlife.com and you can find out all the information you need there. Okay.
All right.
There we go. Well, thanks, guys, for joining us this week. And we're looking forward to a guest host next week. Tiff and I are actually going to be hiking in the Banff area for a couple of nights. And so we have a guest host coming on. It will be a live session, guys. So looking forward to that next week. And thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Yes. And if you guys are looking for first position mortgages, don't forget to look in Fearless. There's a lot of great offers in there that I'm just like, like this far. So anyways, okay, cheers guys. Have a great week. We will see you in 2 weeks.
And we'll see our Ignited members over in our laser
right away.
in about 4 minutes, something like that. Okay, take care, guys.